Alone, surrounded, a baby hippo, orphaned just hours before, now faced a pride of hungry lions. The air itself seemed thick with menace, heavy with the scent of predator, and the fine, choking dust kicked up by nervous paws. The savanna dust swirled around his small, trembling body, a ghostly dance in the oppressive heat. Low, rumbling growls vibrated not just in the air, but deep within his chest, a terrifying drumbeat signaling imminent doom. There was absolutely nowhere to run, nowhere to hide on this open, unforgiving plain. Every instinct screamed danger, but his short, sturdy legs felt rooted to the cracked earth. Survival seemed less than a distant dream, an utter impossibility. But then, in the midst of despair, something incredible, something utterly unexpected happened. Stick around to witness a truly unbelievable rescue unfold. Just days earlier, this little calf's world, though harsh, still held the comforting anchor of his mother. But their existence was overshadowed by a brutal dry season that had clenched the African savanna in its relentless grip for months. Rain was a forgotten memory. The sun beat down mercilessly from a vast bleached sky, baking the land until it cracked open like old pottery. Lush grasslands that should have provided sustenance had withered into fields of brittle yellow stalks that rustled like dry bones in the hot wind. Life-giving rivers had shrunk to sluggish trickles, and waterholes dwindled into thick, muddy puddles, fiercely contested by the savanna's increasingly desperate inhabitants. Through this harsh, shimmering landscape, his devoted mother had led him. Her massive form, usually a symbol of immense power and resilience, was visibly weakening. Their thick, protective skin, which normally glistened with essential moisture, was growing painfully dry and cracked under the unforgiving solar assault. Every weary step forward was a testament to her maternal drive, a desperate, energy-sapping search for water, or even just a patch of cooling mud to grant them a brief respite from the searing heat radiating upwards from the parched earth. The air shimmered constantly, distorting the horizon, making the skeletal figures of leafless trees waver like phantoms. Each time they were fortunate enough to find one of the shrinking, muddy havens, the mother hippo, driven by powerful instinct, would patiently stand guard while her precious calf drank and wallowed first. She watched him absorb the precious moisture, seemingly drawing her own remaining strength into his small body. The sparse, dry vegetation offered almost no nourishment, and her reserves were dwindling fast. The calf, innocent to the true severity of their plight, still followed trustingly, his world entirely dependent on the belief that his mother could lead them through this trial to safety and water. But overhead, unnoticed by the calf, the silent, patient circling of vultures painted an ominous sign against the brassy, unforgiving sky, harbingers of the tragedy to come. Dust devils, like miniature tornadoes, danced mockingly in the hot wind, momentarily obscuring the desolate horizon. The mother strained her senses, her large nostrils flaring as she desperately searched for the faintest scent of water, but the relentless drought had seemingly erased almost all traces of life-sustaining moisture from the air. Her powerful legs grew heavier with each step, her massive body succumbing to the ravages of dehydration and hunger. The little calf sensed his mother's profound fatigue, nudging her massive leg with his snout, perhaps offering a silent plea or encouragement in the only way he knew how. After what felt like an endless, agonizing journey across the scorched land, they reached another shallow, muddy pool, more puddle than pool. The calf, driven by burning thirst, eagerly plunged into the tepid mud, seeking immediate relief. His mother, however, stood motionless at the edge for a long, unnerving moment, her immense energy finally, completely spent. Then, with a heavy, definitive thud that echoed eerily in the profound silence of the savanna, she collapsed onto the dry, unyielding earth. The calf hurried to her side, instantly sensing something was wrong. He nudged her massive head insistently, making small, questioning sounds, his confusion mounting. But the mother hippo lay utterly still, unresponsive to his touch or calls. Under the harsh, direct glare of the afternoon sun, her usually resilient skin seemed dull, lifeless. The little one didn't understand death. He likely thought his mother was simply resting, exhausted after their grueling trek, and so, exhibiting the unwavering loyalty of the young, he waited patiently beside her still form. A full day passed under the oppressive sun. The calf remained faithfully by his mother's side, a growing, gnawing unease creeping into his heart. The familiar comfort of her presence was replaced by a terrifying stillness. Night fell, blanketing the savanna in an unnerving darkness, filled with the distant, sometimes menacing calls of nocturnal creatures he didn't recognize without his mother's reassuring bulk nearby. When the fiery sun rose again, painting the sky in harsh reds and oranges that offered no warmth, only more heat, the calf was desperately weak with thirst and a dawning, heartbreaking sorrow. sorrow. He still hoped with the unfounded optimism of youth that his mother would stir, would wake up and lead him onward. But she remained still, and the unmistakable grim signs of death began to settle over her body, sending out an invisible signal that inevitably drew the attention of nature's cleanup crew. Vultures, bolder now, landed nearby, their presence sharp, unsettling, and undeniably final. The disturbance caused by the large, ungainly birds finally shattered the calf's remaining fragile hope. He realized, with a jolt of cold terror, that something was terribly, irrevocably wrong. He let out high-pitched, distressed cries, circling his mother's body in rising panic, instinctively trying to drive the large birds away but feeling utterly small and powerless against them. The scavengers, patient but persistent, began to close in, their movements confirming the heartbreaking, inescapable truth. This was the moment the young Hippo truly understood. His mother was gone forever. He was utterly, terrifyingly alone on this vast, indifferent, and dangerous land. Shaking violently with a mixture of fear and profound grief, the calf finally turned away, unable to bear the scene any longer. He stumbled onward, his eyes frantically searching the empty horizon for a familiar shape, his throat burning with thirst, but his heart aching even more deeply for the lost safety and comfort of his mother. As the lost and grieving calf wandered deeper into the desolate, sun-scorched savanna, completely unaware of the new, far more immediate dangers lurking nearby, a pride of lions emerged silently on the horizon. Their powerful, tawny forms moved with fluid, predatory purpose, their keen eyes instantly fixed on the vulnerable, solitary young hippo. The lead lioness, experienced and efficient, lowered her head slightly, giving the almost imperceptible signal to begin the stalk. The hunt was on. The sudden, sharp scent of the predators sent a jolt of pure, primal terror through the calf, overriding his grief and exhaustion for a moment. He spun around and tried desperately to run, his short, stocky legs churning through the thick dust in a frantic bid for escape. Though adult hippos are formidable creatures, even on land, a young, weakened, dehydrated calf alone in the open savanna stood virtually no chance against a coordinated lion attack. The pride quickly, effortlessly closed the distance, their low, guttural growls rumbling ominously through the still air, tightening the net. Faster lionesses expertly cut off his escape route, flanking him with terrifying speed and precision. They moved like golden shadows, anticipating his every panicked turn. Within moments, he was completely encircled, trapped. There was nowhere left to run, nowhere left to turn. The calf skidded to a halt, his sides heaving, breathing hard, his small body trembling violently from terror and exertion. He instinctively turned to face the nearest threat, bracing his small frame for the inevitable fatal attack. The lions circled, patient now, observing their cornered, terrified prey. The hunt all but concluded. In that precise moment, when all hope seemed utterly extinguished, when the calf's short life seemed certain to end violently, the tense, heavy silence was dramatically shattered by the loud, unexpected blast of a vehicle horn. An SUV, emblazoned with the markings of the Savannah Wildlife Conservancy, sped onto the scene, kicking up a towering cloud of red dust as it braked hard nearby. The lions, startled by the sudden noise and intrusion, momentarily paused their attack, heads raised in confusion and annoyance. Two figures quickly emerged from the vehicle: conservation scientist Dr. Anya Sharma and experienced ranger David Chen. Anya, without a second's hesitation, moved purposefully towards the lions, shouting and waving her arms authoritatively, making herself appear larger and more threatening. David immediately backed her up, adding to the commotion, using noise and his confident presence to reinforce the unexpected challenge to the predator's dominance. The lions snarled, lowering their heads, clearly displeased by the interruption. They hesitated for a tense moment, weighing the potential reward against this sudden, noisy opposition, but faced with the loud vehicle and the two determined, unafraid humans, their predatory calculus shifted. Reluctantly, they began to back away, melting back into the tall, concealing grass. As silently as they had appeared, they were gone, leaving behind a stunned silence. The little hippo stood frozen, his heart pounding like a drum against his ribs, barely comprehending his incredibly narrow escape. The adrenaline that had surged through him moments before now drained away, leaving him overwhelmingly weak. Then, overcome by the sheer exhaustion and the accumulated trauma of the past days, he simply collapsed onto the dusty ground beside the protective bulk of the vehicle. Anya approached him slowly, cautiously, her movements deliberate and non-threatening. She began speaking in a calm, low, reassuring voice, projecting empathy. Kneeling beside the collapsed calf, she gently began stroking his tough, surprisingly sensitive skin, her experienced hands checking him for injuries, scrapes, cuts, or the deeper wounds of dehydration and starvation. Her voice was filled with deep compassion as she murmured soft words. She and David exchanged a brief, knowing look. They both understood instantly reality that this fragile orphan wouldn't survive another day, let alone a night, out here on his own. Rescue wasn't just an option, it was a necessity. They made the immediate decision to bring him back to the safety of the conservancy. Carefully, coordinating their movements, they managed to guide and then lift the surprisingly dense and heavy baby hippo onto the specially prepared back section of their truck. It was a struggle, requiring significant strength and careful handling, but they worked gently. Too weak to resist, and perhaps instinctively sensing this was help, not harm, the calf remained limp. Anya chose to ride in the back with him, continuing to offer quiet comfort and physical reassurance, monitoring his breathing as David carefully navigated the bumpy track back towards the Conservancy's rescue center, a sanctuary dedicated to orphaned and injured wildlife. Upon arrival at the center, a prepared and efficient team was waiting, alerted by radio. Supplies were laid out, ready for action. The calf, unsteady and weak on his feet, was gently unloaded into a quarantine area. Experienced wildlife staff immediately began a thorough assessment of his condition. Severe dehydration was obvious, his skin tenting when gently pinched. He was significantly malnourished, his ribs subtly visible beneath his hide, and he was clearly deeply traumatized, his eyes wide and dull with shock. The team worked quickly and professionally, immediately beginning supportive care, administering vital intravenous fluids to combat the dehydration, preparing a special, easily digestible milk formula suitable for a young hippo, gently cleaning his dry, cracked skin, and tending to the minor scrapes he'd acquired. Once the cooling fluids began to rehydrate him, and the warmth of the milk substitute filled his empty belly, and perhaps most importantly, once he felt the safety and security of the sturdy enclosure walls around him, the little calf slowly began to revive. His eyes, once vacant and dull with fear and sadness, started to show a tiny, tentative spark of life and awareness again. Considering his incredible resilience and the hope he represented, the team gave him a fitting temporary name, Asha, a word meaning hope in several languages. Day by day, week by week, Asha's recovery became the focus of dedicated care. Anya, David, and the center staff took turns tending to his needs around the clock in the beginning. They patiently fed him his specialized milk formula multiple times a day, meticulously monitored his fluid intake and output, and spent quiet time simply sitting near his enclosure, talking to him in calm, gentle tones, allowing him to gradually acclimate to human presence without fear. Slowly, painstakingly, the shy and traumatized calf began to associate these humans not with danger, but with comfort, food, and safety. He started to relax marginally in their presence. Tentative signs of trust began to emerge, a soft snort of recognition, a brief moment of eye contact without flinching away, and eventually, a hesitant nudge against Anya's outstretched hand, an incredibly touching gesture of burgeoning affection. In the safety and relative comfort of his spacious recovery enclosure, complete with clean water for drinking and wallowing and soft bedding, shielded from the harsh realities of the drought and the constant threat of predators, Asha began the long process of healing, not just physically, but emotionally too. Visitors to the center would often hear Asha's dramatic story, moved by the little hippo's terrifying ordeal, and deeply impressed by the unwavering dedication of his human rescuers and caretakers. Asha, the resilient little hippo who had faced unimaginable loss and mortal danger, became a living, breathing symbol of survival against truly staggering odds on the beautiful, yet often brutal, African savanna. His incredible journey from heartbreaking loss and isolation through a terrifying encounter with apex predators to his dramatic rescue and slow, steady recovery offered a powerful, poignant reminder of the inherent fragility of life in the wild, the enduring strength of the maternal bond, even in its tragic absence, and the absolutely vital importance of conservation efforts and human compassion in protecting these magnificent creatures and their threatened habitats in this beautiful, wild land. His future, once utterly uncertain and perilously close to being extinguished, now held the bright, shining promise of hope. Thank you for watching Asha's incredible story. If you were moved by his fight for life, please give this video a like and subscribe to Animal Guardian for more amazing animal stories from the wild.